Hello friends, once again this is Kumar Wins and a warm welcome to you all to this educational channel. In the first part of video, we discussed about the export documentation. And as I promised, I am back with the second part of session where we will learn the processing of the export order. I'm just going to repeat the overall sequence of export order processing where we have stopped in the first session, and you can have a quick look at the slide to recall the steps. So here it goes like this. You can have a quick look at these steps. We have started from the nature and format of export order, and then after covering different steps, we have stopped here at the claiming export incentives, that is excise rebate or duty drawback. Now moving forward, any export exercise is concluded successfully after the exporter has been able to deliver the consignment in accordance with the export contract and receive payment for the goods. If the goods have not been delivered as per the contract, and if you are an exporter, you should not expect the payment from the importer. And even if the goods have been shipped or delivered as per the export contract and the exporter has not received the payment, the export process is not completed. So in this session, we are going to discuss the various steps involved in the processing of an export order at different stages, and then we will discuss about claiming export incentives. The government of India, or in fact the government of different countries, have provision of different kind of export incentives. So we will discuss about a few export incentives given by the government of India. So coming to the nature and format of export order, for initiating any export we need to have an export order, right? Or I can say that processing of an export order starts with the receipt of an export order. This export order may also be in the form of export sales contract. What I mean to say is there should be a documented agreement between the exporter and the importer before the exporter can start making arrangements for production or procurement of goods and their shipment. Generally, an export order are in three different forms, and these three different forms are like: first is the pro forma invoice. This pro forma invoice is accepted and signed by the importer. The second one is the purchase order. This purchase order is accepted and signed by the exporter because this purchase order is issued by the importer. And third one is the letter of credit. Letter of credit is opened by the importer in favor of the exporter. So let me choose this laser pointer. Here I am talking about this letter of credit. When we talk about pro forma invoice, this pro forma invoice is prepared and sent by the exporter to the importer. And once the terms and conditions mentioned in the pro forma invoice is accepted by the importer returns a copy of the invoice to the exporter, which confirms that okay, I have accepted the pro forma invoice, the terms and conditions mentioned in the pro forma invoice. Alternatively, this export contract may require a purchase order, and this purchase order has to be sent by the importer to the exporter. And if the exporter finds that purchase order is in accordance with the terms and conditions of the contract, they accept it. As you know that the export process, the export business is more complicated than the domestic business. If I am an exporter and I find some very good orders from a company located somewhere in New Zealand or Australia or USA or South Africa, China, from any corner of the world, and this exporter is not known to me, even if I don't have any idea of the background of the exporter, just by looking at the price or the lucrative offer, I might get tempted to export my products to them. But at the same time, I need to ensure that my payment is secured and I am not a victim of fraud. The question is how to ensure that that my payment is secured. Here this letter of credit comes into picture. Basically the LC, I mean the letter of credit, is an instrument of payment, but the major terms and conditions of shipment are mentioned in it, and it enables the exporter to start processing of the export order. So even LC can be treated as an export order. This export sales contract in itself is a good topic to discuss, and I will try to cover this subject sometime in future. Let's move ahead to the second step, which is examination and confirmation of export order. The exporter acknowledges the receipt of the export order and intimates the importer. This intimation can be by phone or fax or email. Let me make it clear that acknowledgement of export order is not a legal requirement, but it certainly helps in creating business goodwill for the exporter. The exporter must carefully examine the contents of the order to see that there is no discrepancy between the export order and the export contract which has been agreed upon earlier. This export contract could be verbal or maybe in written form. So the accepted pro forma invoice, buyer's purchase order, or the letter of credit, these three different forms of export contract must be examined, and a special attention has to be paid to ensure that these items are in line with the export contract. You can just have a look at the items. I am going to read it out and I will explain it in short. First is the product description. And product description, when I say product description, it means the specification given by the importer, or the style of the goods, color of the goods, packing conditions, etc. Second is the marking and labeling requirements, if there is any. Third is the terms of payment. Terms of payment includes currency, nature of LC. This LC could be revocable or irrevocable, confirmed LC or unconfirmed LC, restricted LC or unrestricted LC. There are different kinds of LC. We will talk about it sometime later. Then credit period. If there is any credit period, then it has to be clearly mentioned on the document. Then terms of shipment. Terms of shipment includes the choice of carrier if there is any. Then mode of carriage, it could be by sea or by air, by land. Then the place of delivery, date of shipment, port of shipment, transshipment, etc. Then here is the inspection requirement. There could be some specific instruction of a particular type of inspection, or there could be some choice of inspection agency. Then insurance requirements. Insurance requirements could be about the risk being covered, who is going to cover the risk, how much risk has been covered, and what is the value of insurance. These all things are mentioned clearly in the insurance requirements. Then comes the documents for realizing payment. Here it's documents for realizing payment. It includes the number and nature of invoices, then certificate of origin, certificate of inspection, certificate of value, then bill of exchange, insurance policy, transport document, document of title, etc. And the last one is the last date of negotiation of document with the bank. It's very, very important. And in case if you are an exporter and if you find that there is any discrepancy in the export order, you must inform the importer immediately for necessary amendment. And it is only after the amended order has been received by you, you are liable to fulfill the contractual obligations. And it is always wise to confirm the order by sending a documentary confirmation. And in fact, in certain contracts, it may also be the legal requirement that you need to confirm the order. Once this export order is examined and confirmed that okay, export order is okay and in accordance with the contract, the next step is manufacturing and procurement of goods. I have not mentioned anything about this manufacturing or procurement of goods because basically it's the internal process, but I would like to discuss in short about this process, how this process of manufacturing and procuring goods are performed by the export firm. So what they do, they send a delivery note. We call it, in our general language, we call it as DN. This DN is sent to the production department, preferably in duplicate. And if the firm is not a manufacturer exporter, but the firm is a merchant exporter, the marketing department might send a purchase order to the production department, or the department which is responsible for procuring the goods. Here the delivery note or the purchase order should have details. They should have clear-cut details about the product specification, the quantity, how much quantity is required. Then if there is any specification of packing, marking and labeling, the excise clearance requirement, if there is any requirement of intimation to transport department, and this all information should be available to the production or procurement department for undertaking production and transport activities. And very importantly, the time period within which these activities are to be completed. The production department or the procurement department should retain one copy of the DN or purchase order and confirm the delivery on the duplicate copy. When I say delivery, means transportation to the port. And in order to promote export activities, the commercial banks provide this credit facility at different stages of export for different activities. We will try to cover these different schemes given by the commercial banks sometime later. Now let's focus on the process. So the next process is the central excise clearance. There is an act called as the Central Excise and Salt Act of India. This is the act, Central Excise and Salt Act of India. And this act and the rules related with this act provide for refund of any duty of excise. There is also a provision of rebate in excise duty which exempts from the payment of such duty on final production for export. Final production for export as well as on the inputs used in the manufacturing of export products. So here there are few documents which are used. I have just mentioned these documents. So these are invoice, and there is a form called AR4 form or AR5 form. In the next slide I am going to show you how this AR4 form look like. You can just download this form, AR4 or AR5 form, from the internet. It's easily available. And as soon as the goods are ready for dispatch to the port for shipment, the production department of export company or export firm is to apply to the central excise for excise clearance of the goods. Here the process is, the exporters prepare 6 copies of these forms. When I say these forms, means AR4 or AR5 form. So there are 6 copies which has to be prepared. Okay, and exporters are now allowed to remove the goods for export on their own without getting the goods examined or after the examination by the central excise officers. Here there could be 2 different cases. One is without examination. So in case of without examination, the exporter submits 4 copies of AR4 or AR5 form to the superintendent of central excise. So which superintendent of central excise has to be chosen for submission of these documents? Very clearly, the one who has jurisdiction over the premise of the exporter, and these forms have to be submitted within 24 hours of the removal of the consignment. The superintendent examines this form, AR4 or AR5 form, and if they are satisfied, they sign the form and they return it to the concerned persons. Sometimes there could be a case that the exporter might be having a desire to prevent this examination of goods from the custom authorities. In that case, what they do, there is a provision that the central excise officers will examine the goods, they will seal the goods, and it can be shipped without examination by the custom authorities. Here, if there is a such case, the exporter has to submit 6 copies of AR4 or AR5 forms to the superintendent of central excise. Again, which superintendent of central excise? Very clearly, the one who has jurisdiction over the premises of the exporter. Then the superintendent may depute an inspector of central excise, or if possible, he may himself go for the sealing and examination of export cargo. And after he is satisfied, he allows the clearance of cargo. Right? So these forms are examined. Then these central excise officers, they after examination and being satisfied, they seal the goods, and clearance of cargo is allowed. Right? So here you can just have a look at the form AR4. I have downloaded it from the net, and you can have a look. Here the reason is it is an application for removal of excisable goods for export by air or sea or port or land. So you can just have a look at it. You can also download this form. It's easily available. I have not given this AR5 form. The intention was just to give you an idea. So moving to the next step, that is pre-shipment inspection. Our government, that is Government of India, notifies from time to time a number of goods whose export is subject to compulsory quality control or pre-shipment inspection. And for such goods, the Indian customs authorities will require the submission of an inspection certificate. These inspection certificates are issued by some designated agencies before permitting the shipment to take place. Basically, this inspection is done based on the importer's specification, but there are few cases where the safety is involved or the health hazard issues are involved, and there is minimum requirement of maintaining a minimum standard. In those cases, it's mandatory to go for pre-shipment inspection. So inspection of export goods may be conducted under consignment wise inspection or in process quality control, or there could be a self certification. So there are 3 different ways, there are 3 different conditions, or I will say there are 3 different parameters on which this inspection can be conducted. So let us discuss about the consignment wise inspection. Before the excise authorities seal packs, the process of pre-shipment inspection must be completed. It's very obvious that once it is sealed, you cannot do any pre-shipment inspection. The production department has to apply to the export inspection agencies. There are different EIAs available in different locations, and they will nominate some inspector, and those inspectors will conduct examination of the export goods. This application has to be made on a prescribed form. This form is known as notice of inspection. So this notice of inspection has to be submitted to the export inspection agency, and this notice of inspection has to be accompanied by some documents. These documents are copy of the commercial invoice, then there is a cross check or the demand draft, because they will charge something. There is an inspection fee, you need to pay the inspection fee to the to the export inspection agencies. Then there should be a copy of export contract. Then importers technical specifications, or if they have got an approved sample, it has to be submitted. And after the inspector has completed inspection, the export inspection agency will issue the inspection certificate. So the inspection certificate are issued in triplicate. The original copy is for the customs verification, so it will go to the customs authorities, and this original copy is submitted to the customs authorities along with other documents before permission is granted for shipping the goods. The second copy is sent to the buyer, and the third copy is for the exporter's record. Now the next step is very important. It's appointment of clearing and forwarding agents. We call them as CFA, or we also call them as freight forwarders. The question is, why do we need to have a CFA? Why can't we do, if I am an exporter, why can't I perform all the activities on my own? Why do I need to have a CFA? Let me tell you, they are very important. I mean, they perform very important activities. They perform a number of functions on behalf of the exporter. So a lot of work. If I'm an exporter, I need not to worry about a lot of functions, and my CFA will take care of these activities. They provide specialized help in the exporter's warehouse to the importer's warehouse by undertaking different documentary formalities or different procedural formalities, etc. They help in packing, then marking, labeling of consignment, arrangement for transport, then arrangement for shipment overseas, then customs clearance of cargo, procurement of transport and other documents. But the main function of CFA is to obtain customs clearance of goods. They ship the goods and procure the relevant transport document. When I say the transport document, it's basically the BL, I mean the bill of lading or the airway bill, which we discussed in the last session. And for performing this desired function, the exporter is required to give some kind of instructions to this agent. And if this service doesn't come free of cost, you need to pay some charge, you need to pay some fee to the CFA for these activities. And on completion of the process of clearance by the excise authorities as well as obtaining the inspection certificate, the production department dispatches the consignment to the port of shipment, and it can be dispatched either by the road or by rail, and this information is sent to the export department by signing the delivery note. So one delivery note is sent to the export department. Who sent this delivery note? As I already mentioned, this is the production department who is responsible for sending this delivery note. They prepare a dispatch advice, and there are some other documents which are attached along with this DN. They send the railway receipt or LR copy, or we call it as lorry way bill, invoice, then AR4 or AR5 form. These forms are sent in original as well as in duplicate. And on receipt of these documents, the export department will appoint a CFA. And there is a document which is signed. This is called as shipping instruction sheet, or sometimes it's also called as shipping instructions. And this document contains full details of instructions of the exporter as well as details of the consignments to be shipped. And along with this shipping instruction sheet or the shipping instructions, there are some other documents which has to be sent to the agent. These are commercial invoice, then you have customs declaration form. It has to be submitted in triplicate. Generally commercial invoices, when we send commercial invoice to the CFA, we send 8 to 10 copies. What is this customs declaration form? I have mentioned here customs declaration form in triplicate. So basically this customs declaration form, it's a legal requirement whereby the exporter states that the declarations made to the customs authorities by the agent on his behalf are true. So it's a declaration by the exporter to the customs authorities. Then there is a packing list. If there is any need of providing packing list, it has to be given. Then original LC or the contract copy. Then inspection certificate, the original inspection certificate issued by the EIA, Export Inspection Agencies. Then there is a GR form. What is this GR form? It is submitted in original as well as duplicate. I will discuss about GR form in some other slides. Okay, it's basically a foreign exchange declaration form. You just keep in mind that GR form is nothing but a foreign exchange declaration form. Then AR4 or AR5 form in original and duplicate. Then invoice, and this transport document, that is railway receipt or lorry way bill. Then the next step is transportation of goods to the port of shipment. We have already learned the documents relating to transportation of goods to the port of shipment. Transportation and movement of goods to the port for shipment involve few activities like packing, marking, and labeling of consignment, arrangement for movement of goods either by road or by rail. So here we need to be very careful about the packing. If you have very good packing, export quality packing, it helps in minimizing freight and delivery cost. It also eliminates the possibility of the insurance company's refusal to pay a claim in the event of a loss or damage to goods in transit. So if there are some damage, or if based on that damage or loss, if you want to make some claim, if your packing quality is very good, the insurance company find it's very difficult to refuse to pay the claim. If there are some specific instructions on packing in the export contract, it has to be followed. Otherwise, there is a chance that your export will not be accepted by the importer. And after the goods are packed, the packages are to be properly marked and labeled, because in one vessel there will be thousands of export commodities or export items. You need to mark it, label it properly for easy identification. Basically, the purpose of marking is identification of goods. Okay. This could be label could be like you can use some kind of stencils, or you can give some kind of instructions on the package. These labels are usually in the pictorial form. There could be some pictures so that the importer could easily identify, or they can easily follow your instruction, right? So after the production department has completed the excise clearance and the pre-shipment inspection formalities, the export goods are packed, marked, and labeled. At the same time, the export department takes steps to reserve a space on the ship through which goods are to be sent. Because excise clearance is over, pre-shipment inspection is over. Now the goods are packed, marked, and labeled. And if you don't have the space on the ship, all these activities will go in vain. So simultaneously, what the export department do, they take some steps to reserve a space on the ship. This reservation of shipping space can be done either through the CFA or the freight broker who work on behalf of the shipping company, or directly from the shipping company. After the space has been reserved, the shipping company will issue a document known as shipping order. This document is issued by the shipping company. So what is the purpose of this document? This shipping order is a proof that space has been reserved. and this information on a space reservation is given to the production department so that they could make some arrangement of transportation, right? So they will make some arrangement for transportation to the port. Okay. If the consignment has to be sent to a road carrier, no specific formality is involved. The production department engages a reliable carrier and books the consignment to the port, generally in the name of the clearing and forwarding agent. So there is an LR, we call it as lorry receipt or truck receipt. Once the goods has been booked on the lorry or truck, there is a receipt, LR or truck receipt is issued, and this document is sent along with other document to the CFA at the port town, and based on this document they can take the delivery of the cargo. What happens when we have to send this cargo by rail? So there are some laid down procedure which need to be followed for obtaining allotment of wagon, and this allotment is done on a priority basis. There are some schemes by the railway board. So according to this scheme, wagons are allotted on the priority basis for carrying export goods to the port. Okay, and there are some documents which has to be submitted for booking railway yard or for booking the wagon, and this document has to be sent or submitted to the railway yard or railway station. What are these documents I have mentioned here? So one is forwarding note. Forwarding note is nothing but a railway document. Second is the shipping order. Shipping order is the proof of reservation of shipping space, which we discussed in the last slide, issued by the shipping company. Okay, and third one is the wagon registration fee receipt. So when you pay some receipt for booking the wagon, there is a receipt, and this receipt has to be submitted to the railway station. After the wagons have been allotted, goods are loaded, for which railways will issue a receipt because there should be some kind of acknowledgement. So your wagons are allotted, goods are loaded, then the railway will issue a receipt which is called as railway receipt, and this receipt along with other documents, these documents are sent to the CFA. The CFA who is based at the port town. So at this stage, what the production or export department do, they make an application to the insurance company for insurance coverage, because you are dispatching your goods by rail to the port town. In between, if there is some kind of loss or damage or there is some kind of mishap, then you need to claim for the losses. So it's always advisable, in fact in few cases it's mandatory, to obtain insurance policy. Okay, so insurance company issue insurance policies. It's for internal as well as overseas. Okay, so your goods are sent to the port town by rail or by truck, so you need to have an insurance policy for the internal transfer, and for overseas shipment, for overseas transportation also, you need to have an insurance policy. Now coming to the port formalities and customs clearance. So on receipt of the documents sent by the export department, the CFA, he takes the delivery of the cargo from the railway station or the road transport company, and he arranges its storage in the warehouse. At the same time, he also starts some action to obtain customs clearance, because he need to obtain custom clearance and permission from the port authorities for bringing this cargo into the shipment shed. He cannot keep it in warehouse for a long because it costs you, it increases the lead time. So you need to bring, your CFA needs to bring this cargo to the shipment shed. What is required here is you need to have customs clearance, and your port authorities must give permission for bringing this cargo to the shipment shed. Okay, so storage in the warehouse is over, then custom clearance and permission from the port authorities for bringing cargo into the shipment shed. Now the question is, why do we need to have this customs control? What is the purpose? What are the objectives? Okay, so the objectives are very clear if you just have a look at it. It's to ensure that the goods which are moving out of the country are moving only after compliance with different laws concerning export trade. Okay, the second objective is to ensure that the value of export goods are authentic, so there is no over invoicing or under invoicing. Then the third objective is assessment and collection of export duty, because it generates some income for the government. So if there is an export duty applicable of the export which you are undertaking, so there will be assessment and collection of export duty, and it can be done based on the customs clearance activities. And the last one is the data on cargo movements. So they keep compiling the data on cargo movements, right? So what is the process of control? And for complying with these objectives, the customs grant permission of export at two different stages. First, the documentary checks are made at the office of the customs, that is the customs house. Customs house, generally we call the office of the customs as customs house, and they perform this documentary checks. Secondly, the physical examination of goods. So the physical examination of goods is made in the shipment shed where the cargo has been brought. So they verify that the goods being exported are exactly the same which has been declared on the document submitted at the customs house. And the document on which customs give clearance for export is the shipping bill. So on shipping bill, the customs will give clearance for export. The customs, the clearing and forwarding agent is to file some documents with the customs house. They file some documents. These documents are shipping bill, which I will show you these documents in the next slide. These are shipping bill, then contract or correspondence leading to the contract. Okay, then LC copy, then commercial invoice, GR form, inspection certificate, AR4 or AR5 form, packing list, or if there are other documents which customs people might ask you to submit, then these documents have to be submitted. Okay, then the customs appraiser or the examiner, they examine these documents. Okay, so once these documents are examined, they appraise the value. What is the value of this cargo? So this appraisal are basically done with some consideration that the value and quantity declared in the shipping bill is the same as in the export order or LC. Let me repeat once again. The document shipping bill is the one on which customs give clearance for export. So it's mandatory for them to check that the quantity and value mentioned on the shipping bill is exactly in line with the one which has been mentioned on the LC copy, right? Or the export order, it could be. Second, formalities regarding exchange control, pre-shipment quality control, and policies inspection, etc., have been duly completed. Okay, so they check that formalities have been completed, and once these documents are examined and the value is appraised, the customs examiner or appraiser makes an endorsement on the duplicate copy of the shipping bill. He also gives directions to the dock appraiser about the extent of physical examination of the cargo to be conducted at the docks. He might give a kind of instruction to the dock appraiser for another physical examination of the cargo, right? And all the documents except GR form, the original shipping bill, and a copy of the commercial invoice are returned to the CFA, and these documents in turn have to be presented to the dock appraiser, right? Now the next is, okay, so now after taking delivery of documents from the export department, what CFA does, they present the port trust document to the shed department, shed superintendent of the port. Okay, then they obtain carting order. Carting order is what? Carting order is basically given for bringing the export cargo to the transit shed. So there is a carting order. Here I am just going to show you all the documents which I mentioned during the last slide. So these are the shipping bill, okay, then contract or correspondence leading to the contract, then LC, then commercial invoice, we have GR form, inspection certificate, AR4 or AR5 form, then packing list, or if there is any other document. So these all documents have to be submitted to the customs house by the CFA, right? So moving forward, forwarding agent presents the port trust document to the shed superintendent of the port. Then he obtains carting order. I said you carting order is basically an order for bringing the export cargo to the transit shed. And in this transit shed, the dock appraiser conduct physical examination of the goods for the shipment. Okay. So after bringing the cargo into the shed, he presents some documents to the dock appraiser for conducting physical examination. Okay. What are these documents? These documents are export promotion copies of the shipping bill. It could be in duplicate or triplicate. Then commercial invoice, packing list, AR4 or AR5 form in duplicate and original, and then invoice copy, then inspection certificate, the original inspection certificate, then the GR copy, GR form, duplicate copy of the GR form, and the dock appraiser, after conducting physical examination, records examination report and makes late export endorsement on the duplicate copy of the shipping bill. We will discuss about it in the next slide. So I'm just going to mention all these documents which are presented to the dock appraiser. You can just have a look at it, make a note of all these documents which I mentioned earlier. Okay. So what is the next step? So now the dock appraiser, he will conduct physical examination and he will make late export endorsement on the duplicate copy of the shipping bill. So here is the late export endorsement on the duplicate copy of the shipping bill. Who does it? So it's the dock appraiser, right? And then he hands over this copy of shipping bill to the forwarding agent. There are some other documents as well, and these all documents have to be presented to the preventive officer. Preventive officer, they are in the customs department. The basic duty of preventive officer is to supervise the loading of cargo on board the vessel. Okay. Then the preventive officer, they make another endorsement on the duplicate copy of the shipping bill, and this endorsement is known as late ship. So once the preventive officer allows the cargo to be booked into the vessel, on board the vessel, he endorses the duplicate copy of shipping bill like late ship. Okay. So this constitutes an authorization by the customs to the shipping company to accept the cargo on the vessel. Then authorization to the shipping company to accept the cargo on the vessel. Cargo is loaded on board the vessel, then METS receipt. It's very important. So let me explain about it. Once the goods are loaded on board the vessel, the captain of the ship issues a receipt. This receipt is known as the METS receipt, and this receipt is issued to the shed superintendent of the port. Here the forwarding agent then makes a payment to the port charges and takes delivery of the METS receipt. And he presents the METS receipt first to the preventive officer, who records the certificate of shipment on all copies of the shipping bill. Okay, original and duplicate copies of AR4 or AR5 form. And then he returns the export promotion copy, a copy of drawback shipping bill, and presents the METS receipt to the shipping company. It sounds a bit complicated, but it's not. Let me repeat. The METS receipt is presented first to the preventive officer, and the preventive officer records the certificate of shipment on all the copies of the shipping bill, original and duplicate copies of the AR4 or AR5 form, and then he returns the export promotion copy, a copy of drawback shipping bill, and presents the METS receipt. The METS receipt is one which is issued by the captain of the ship, and this METS receipt is presented to the shipping company and request it to issue the BL. Okay, so here the shipping company issues the bill of lading or BL copy. Now the next step is dispatch of documents by forwarding agent to the exporter. So once the CFA obtains bill of lading from the shipping company, he sends these documents to the exporter. So what are these documents? I have made a list of these documents. You can have a look at it. One copy of the commercial invoice duly attested by the customs, then export promotion copy of shipping bill, drawback copy of shipping bill, full set of clean onboard bill of lading together with non-negotiable copies. We will see what is this clean onboard bill of lading copy when we will discuss about different kinds of BL. Okay, then the next is original letter of credit or contract order, copies of customs invoice if there is any, then duplicate AR5 or AR4 form and invoice copy, then GR form in triplicate. Now we will discuss about the certificate of origin and the shipment advice. So once these documents are received by the exporter, he makes an application to the Chamber of Commerce. So the CFA arranges to dispatch these documents to the exporter, and after receiving these documents, the exporter makes an application to the Chamber of Commerce and he obtains a certificate of origin. This certificate of origin is issued in duplicate. So in case of export shipment to countries where GSP concession is offered, the GSP certificate of origin will have to be procured by the exporter from the concerned authorities. So generally the export inspection agencies are the one who issue GSP certificate of origin. So here is the GSP certificate of origin. Many of you would be interested in knowing GSP. What I have mentioned here, the GSP certificate of origin. So just in brief, let me tell you, the GSP or the generalized system of preferences is a kind of a scheme whereby a wide range of industrial and agricultural products originating in certain developing countries, they are given preferential access to the markets of the European Union. Okay, this preferential treatment is given in the form of reduced or zero rates of custom duties. So wherever you find that GSP certificate of origin is applicable, you will get some kind of rebate, or maybe you need not pay any custom duty. So this scheme benefits certain developing countries and integrate them into the world economy. Okay, then comes this shipment advice. So what is this shipment advice? This advice is sent to the importer by the exporter, and in fact it's a kind of intimation about the date of shipment of the consignment by a named vessel and its expected time of arrival at the destination port. And there are some documents which are to be sent along with the shipping advice so that the importer may start making further arrangements for taking delivery of the consignments. I don't know whether it's appearing here. Yes. So these documents are the non-negotiable copy of the BL, commercial invoice, packing list, and the customs invoice. Right? Then presentation of documents to the bank for negotiation or collection. So now you have exported the goods, you need to have your money, right? So you need to present the documents to the bank. So what are these documents? One is the commercial invoice. There could be a definite there could be some number of copies which bank might ask you, so you need to submit 2 or 3 or 4 copies of commercial invoice. Then certificate of origin, 2 copies of certificate of origin. Then customs invoice, again they will ask you certain number of copies, so you need to submit those copies. Then gr form in duplicate. So let me tell something about the gr form. As I said earlier, gr form, or it's also called as guaranteed remittance form, it's submitted to the customs department by the exporter before shipping the good. And in fact this form is submitted to customs, where customs at the harbor is not computerized, that is there is no provision of EDI, that is electronic data interchange. And all the details like import export code, the product details, quantity, number of packs, etc. has to be filled up in this gr form. The customs will verify all the details and submit 1 copy back, as gr form has to be submitted in duplicate. Okay, and this custom copy is sent to RBI. The customs department themselves make this arrangement to send this document to the RBI. And the exchange control copy is nothing but the exporter's copy. Exchange control copy is submitted by the exporter along with other export documents to their banker, because when you as an exporter want to negotiate with the bank, you need to submit this document, and it has to be submitted within 21 calendar days from the date of BL. It's very very important. Let me repeat, I can repeat it for 10 times. It's very very important. This exchange control copy, that is exporter's copy, has to be submitted by the exporter along with other export documents to his banker within 21 calendar days from the date of bill of lading. The bank will keep this document, and once the export proceeds is received, they will file the gr form. Okay. However, in the statement to RBI, that is export outstanding statement by the banks, RBI will come to know about any export proceedings yet to be received, and then they compare this outstanding statement with the gr form submitted by the customs. Okay, so this is in brief about the gr form. Then the next document is the packing list. They might ask you to submit a particular number of copies. It could be 3, 4, 5, depends on their requirement. Then full set of clean onboard bill of lading, negotiable plus non-negotiable copies. Okay. Then some additional copies of the commercial invoice for certification by the bank. Then original letter of credit or export contract. Then bank certificate in the prescribed form in duplicate. Then marine insurance policy certificate. Then bill of exchange. Yeah, that's right. Then the next is about claiming export incentives. So we discussed about the processing of an export order at pre-shipment, shipment and post-shipment level. Now we will discuss the process of claiming export incentives. One is the excise rebate. So after completing the post-shipment formalities, the CFA will file the following documents, which I have mentioned here, with the Maritime Central Excise Collector or Jurisdictional Assistant Collector, we call it as JAC, of Central Excise, for claiming the refund of excise duty, or it could be for obtaining the release from bond, depending on the case. Okay, so the documents are AR4 or AR5 form, duplicate copy of this form, which has been certified by the customs preventive officer, right? And then the non-negotiable copy of the BL or shipping bill, certified by the customs preventive officer. There could be some additional documents like the application for refund in form C and pre-receipt. Okay, so then there is another export incentive that is called as duty drawback, and for claiming duty drawback, the exporter's agent, that is your CFA, will file the customs attested copy of the drawback shipping bill. So this shipping bill along with some other documents are submitted or filed by the exporter's agent. Okay, it is submitted with the drawback department of the customs house. So the documents are drawback claim pro forma prescribed application form in 5 copies. Then there is bank or custom certified copy of commercial invoice. Then the third one is non-negotiable copy of BL, or and finally, if there is any other specifically prescribed document, the department people might ask you for some other documents, right? And once the drawback department finds the claim to be correct, they dispatch the check of the claim amount to the exporter, or if the exporter desires, this amount will be sent to the exporter's bank for being credited to his account with intimation to the exporter, right? So with this we can conclude the processing of export order. Please share your suggestions. I thank you a lot, and share your suggestions, or in case you have any query about any topic of supply chain management or sales and operations planning, you can send me your query to the email ID I mentioned here, supply chain and operations at gmail.com. Okay, so we will meet soon with some other topic. Thank you and see you soon.